Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, wake up in the morning to the clear blue sky. Turn up the music when I hop in the ride. The windows down, let the whole world see. Can't nobody rock it like little old me. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up.
Good morning. We want to welcome you to the Riverside Weekly. We hope your time with us today is thought-provoking, spiritually challenging, and a life-changing experience. Our discussions and messages can be raw, real, and at times very uncomfortable and even controversial. We highly encourage all of our guests and listeners to take notes, leave comments, and when possible, always share what you hear. Now here are your hosts, Pastors Selo and Pastor Mia.
What up? It's Wednesday morning.
How's it going, everybody? It's Wednesday morning. It's super early. My eyes feel like I have sleep in them, and my hair's a mess.
That's what happens when you wake up at 5 a.m., you know?
This is our first, what is this called? Our first video podcast. We're just seeing how this thing's going to run, how it's going to sound, how it's going to look. And you can see I did not do my makeup, so I'm running live right here. And looking the way I'm looking, it's a little rough. I'm fixing to take my hair down.
Please don't take your hair down. You might scare us all. You'll wake us up and we'll be like,
feel
what
the whiskers on the side of my head here. So
What do
what are we talking about this morning?
So we have something that I've been thinking about for a whole minute, but I think it's just because I've been thinking about it and listening to it and just more and more. So I don't know. It's been making me think about it forever. But one of the things that I was thinking about was, what are some of the things that we wish pastors would say? You know, I was thinking about
That's
that.
a scary thought.
It is a scary thought. There's a lot of things that adults or normal people would think that pastors should say. Like pastors don't say things like, no, I'm not okay.
I had all these things going through my head when you
Oh,
said
good
that.
Lord.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Say it. Say it. Say it. Don't spray it.
No,
say
no,
it.
I'm good.
I mean,
Stay in church.
oh, okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. I'm thinking like, okay, people are like, well, how come pastors, you know, how come they don't say, you know, it's okay to cry? Pastors don't say that. They're like, no, you got to get over it. You know, not all of them.
Sometimes I think some pastors do say like it's okay to cry. I do. I tell my people to cry.
I know you do, bro. I'm just
okay.
saying.
Like-
Think of things that you would wish that pastors would have said to you, and that's what makes me think about that. You know? Yeah.
I don't know. I pretty much say just about everything,
Do you?
just short of cussing, and we did a podcast on that.
Yeah, we did. Another one would be, I was wrong. What if a pastor were to say that to you?
I think leaders, just general and leaders, supervisors. I think parents.
Mm-hmm. I would love for a parent to say, I was wrong.
I was wrong.
I was wrong.
I think we have a hard time saying. I can say I think pastors. I think they do have a hard time saying that they're wrong because they're afraid to admit that they don't know everything.
That's true.
How about that?
So how about if we had a pastor say, I don't understand.
I don't understand. I don't know.
Or I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, I think.
Instead of making excuses.
Yeah, I think if pastors did that, I think the general public would be more receptive to the church. I think they would be more receptive to quote unquote Christianity.
That's good. No, and I was thinking about that. Should we even say that this is things I wish pastors would say? Should it be things that I wish people would say?
Well, I mean, I think people and
I know you said leaders. I know
adults.
you said that.
I say adults.
Okay, so we need to call this podcast ownership. Take ownership.
Well, I mean, we did a podcast on ownership, but I think transparency is. We talked about transparency and authenticity, you know, and I think a lot of times as parents, we're afraid to let our kids know that we don't know what's going on all the time. And I think as leaders, we're afraid to let the people that are following us know that we don't know everything all the time. And as pastors, I think that we're afraid to be transparent because it makes us look
vulnerable
and like
and weak.
we're supposed to be leading this thing, and we don't even know exactly what we're doing.
You can follow me. I don't know where we're going, but you can follow me.
Yeah, so I think when you think about things that pastors would say,
things I wish pastors would say. Yeah.
For me, it's hard because being in a pastoral role for the last 20. Wow, I'm getting older. 20 something, 20, 21, 22 years.
Watch out now.
Watch out, right? I don't know. I've always tried to be transparent and hit things head on because I'm so bad. I'm not going to say this. I'm afraid at how bad I'll look if something goes wrong, and I try to act like it's not. And so I always try to hit it off at the front end. Nip it in the bud. You know,
Right.
So for me, I don't know. Like, what were some things that you feel like pastors should say? Or
I think what I said was in the beginning. No, I'm not okay. You know, because pastors, it's just what you said. Pastors usually try to cover up what they're going through, what they're dealing with. Yeah, hurts
and offenses.
Yeah, and they don't own up to
being human.
Yeah.
Being a human being.
Yeah.
A human free holy.
Yeah. And especially what you said, you know, leaders don't own up to hurting. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got a good phrase. You ready?
Okay.
I'm tight with God. And in case no one knows,
I am tight with God.
That was my husband's phrase until he got saved. He thought that he knew it all, and he was just like, nah, you don't need to pray for me. I'm tight with God.
I'm tight with God. I found out that I did know everything.
You did?
Yeah, and everything I didn't know, God knew. So I was good.
Okay, so you was good.
I know the guy that knows everything.
You was good, bro.
Yeah.
You was good.
I know the person that knows everything.
Do you?
Yes.
But you didn't. That was the point. You just said all that, but you didn't know everything.
No, I didn't. But I think a lot of times when leadership and, you know, I think it's more so with spiritual leadership that, you know, that they're not how can I say this? They're not open enough to admit when things are not going their way.
Yeah.
Or here's the other part of that is that sometimes they'll say that they're not aware, or they'll say that I didn't know, or they'll say I don't know, but they won't say it genuinely or meaningful. They'll just kind of say it like sarcasm, like they're trying to prove a point. Well, I don't know everything, you know. So I think the attitude has a lot to do with the way that it comes off. Because I don't know. It's hard for me because I don't know. Like for my pastor, like I never had that issue with him. I mean, he would say stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's good. You know, like his vulnerability. There you go. Say that 3 times real fast.
Vulnerability.
So
everyone else is doing it as well.
He's vulnerable. Made himself vulnerable to me and you know, other leaders, and at the same time was transparent. Never did he ever, you know, come across like he knew everything or anything like that, you know. So there was things that I felt like maybe I don't feel like there was a whole lot that he didn't share. So I guess for me it's hard to you know, for me to think in those terms. Like I wish some things that I wish pastor would say, and I can think of tons of things that I wish pastors would not say. So, you know, like I wish pastors wouldn't say that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you know, but that's a whole different
podcast.
That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you probably would make a lot of pastors mad with that topic.
But I mean, but for me to try to think of things that I wish pastors would say, I think a lot of it has to do with just being authentic and transparent, and not trying to be perfect or come across as like not having issues or things like that. So I don't know if that answered your question. Or
so let's
I don't know how bad I messed your podcast up.
No. I mean, I only say that because I said something in service the other day, and I was like, "Hey guys, you know, I had a mental breakdown. We went through something, you know, not tragic, but not a midlife crisis. I don't know, call it whatever you want. But to say that from the pulpit." And to say that I felt like no one loved me at a time in my life, and you know, I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel, you know, worthy of living. I didn't feel any of that. And for me, I was like, ooh, I just like opened a can of worms, you know. But at the same time, I felt freeing enough to say that to our congregation and be able to say that out loud and not hesitate and not even flinch. And I was just like, it was me being vulnerable. And I think, saying that to say, at that time, I wish that I would have said, no, I'm not okay,
Yeah. And I don't think that's part of where a lot of pastors are, a lot of spiritual leaders, well, I'm going to say just pastors, a lot of pastors are at is they don't want to admit to their congregation that they're hurting. Like, you can only carry so much weight before you have to get some of it away.
Yeah. What did you say? You said something about that somebody said at a conference we went to, something about hurting. You can only take so much hurt, or you're a pastor if you're hurting.
Oh, I was. They were talking about how when pastors are hurting, like anytime you stop hurting, like if you stop feeling hurt, if you stop feeling offense, that's when you gotta be concerned, because that means you're no longer feeling.
And your heart is hardened.
Your heart is
hardening.
Yeah, your heart is hardened or getting hard, and so a lot of times pastors can become cynical and from that perspective, because they've been hurt. But I think the biggest issue for a lot of pastors, as you guys are listening to this, you might think about your pastors.
Yeah.
We always say, you see those posts on social media, pray for your pastor, pray for your pastor. Well, yeah, it's prayer is great, but
why don't you check up on them?
Yeah, just a good
Take
hug,
them to
take
lunch.
them to lunch, and just
Bless your pastor.
they're carrying a lot of weight
Yeah.
from the congregation and other issues, and so they're not just dealing with home bills and situations and circumstances. They're dealing with the congregation. They're dealing with if they have a facility or building, they're dealing with that type of stuff. And I think just as church member in general and congregation, I pray for them, but I think giving them. I mean, one time a year they have like pastors appreciation month, and that's like I forget when that is. Anyway, so
I don't know.
They have that once a month. But the other 11 months, man, pastors don't hardly hear nothing from anybody,
Yeah.
So just at the end of a service, maybe just shake their hand, hand them a $20 bill, and just
Buy
bless
lunch.
them, or it's really just a different I don't know what you call it, occupation, calling. Like if a pastor is pastoring, I guarantee you that if he's really truly pastoring and has a call to pastor, he would much rather probably be doing something else, except for that he knows that he's called to do that.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of money that can help that. So I think a lot of times that's kind of where pastors don't share, is because the only ones that can really understand what it means to be a pastor are pastors. And so I encourage you, if you're listening to this and you're a pastor, I encourage you to find some fellowship with some folks and some other pastors and talk. I mean, pastors need pastors.
Be vulnerable. Yeah. That's really the thing. Be a pastor to a pastor.
Yeah, be a pastor to a pastor, or find a pastor to help you. Pastors need pastors. And
Yes,
so
they do.
And so I would just encourage you guys. If there's some things that you wish your pastor would say, I would let them know. It's like, why don't you,
How come you don't ever talk about
how
this?
come you don't talk about this? This might be a good subject to talk about. Or
how come everything you talk about is always great?
Can you address this, and can you address that? Sometimes we don't. There's a whole spiritual aspect. Well, he's praying and believing God to hear from God and hear a message. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that isn't happening, but I mean, sometimes there are some things that we just don't talk about in the church.
Yeah.
Like we don't address things in the church. And a lot of times it's just because it's uncomfortable for the pastor, so he won't say anything. And then it's uncomfortable for the congregation because they're afraid what he might say, and it might affect their belief system and their doctrine and their theology. And so a lot of times they won't, pastors, they'll skirt around the issue, or they may touch it a little bit, but they're just kind of I don't want to say afraid, but they're apprehensive.
Apprehensive.
So
that's a good word.
I don't know how bad I chopped up this.
No, you did good.
Podcast.
You did good, because I was thinking about it as you were talking, and I was like, dude, we need to do a whole nother podcast, and it needs to be called "Bless Your Pastor."
Bless your pastor.
Well, that's just because people think, no, that pastor has too much. Look at him rolling in a Rolls Royce and this and that, and I meant
I've got an old white Ford truck, so I'm good.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that needs to be a whole nother issue that is addressed. I just wanted to talk about, I wish things pastors would say. And, because people need to know they're human.
Yeah.
They're human under that call.
Yeah.
And they take a lot of weight. And you're right. 1 month out of the year is really not enough. And you're like, man, they get all the tithes to the church and this and that. And I was like, no, no, they don't. There's a lot of bills that go into taking care of all these sheeps. I mean, we got to pick up all the stuff y'all leave behind. And I mean,
we're not complaining about you guys though.
Oh, we're not.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But I just wanted to talk about that for a minute. If pastors were more vulnerable, and really, I don't know about vulnerable. How about transparent?
Yeah.
That should be the word. If they were more transparent, then people would say, oh, they really are human. I think about that, and I think I explained that to someone else before. There was this person that just kept picking at me, and I was just like, God, what am I going to do? Hit
him on the head. Oh.
No, not even that. I wouldn't even
kick him in the shin.
I think I was a pastor then, yeah.
Oh.
And I was just like, Lord, what do I do? I mean,
Pray for him. Lay hands
they
on
just
him.
keep trying to get me in trouble and trying to say stuff, and I was just like, Lord. And I remember God telling me, if you'll see them from my eyes, and just he just showed me them through his eyes, and my heart just broke for them. And that's when I think I made a different switch, as not the associate, but as a senior pastor. And after that, now I see people in a different light, and I either want to it's funny because I was thinking about this today at work. I either want to Baymax them, which is teddy bear hug them, or and if you don't know who Baymax is, go look it up. But I either want to Baymax hug them, or I just want to love on them, and through their anger at that, and just like the people at your bank, or the people that you're around, or the people that you see in the grocery store, and they have attitudes, or your server,
Your server, or that person in front of you that's got 25 coupons paying with a check.
You know what? Let's not talk about me. Don't talk about me. I coupon. I got me some coupons. But just saying that they need to be loved through that. And I think pastors are called to do that. Not that everybody else isn't, but pastors are definitely called to put up with that. And they take in a lot of that. I kind of look at them as the, what is that thing that was on Ready Player One? The orb, but it put this thing around it. What's the shield?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, but what is this?
The orb of Alpha Box.
Yeah, but what's the shield? The shield.
It's a protective shield.
I don't know what the protective shield is called, but pastors are like the protective shield of the world. They Baymax these angry and hurting people, and like hold the implosion in and suck it all up so that the world doesn't have to deal with them.
Or the congregation.
Or the congregation,
or
not the
other
world.
Leaders.
Yeah, or the other leaders, yeah. Be like, hug them and...
Our congregation is perfect. Our leadership is perfect. So just know, y'all are the best. We get the best.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know if that helped anybody, but I just wanted to touch that and just let them know that, pastors are real humans. That's the premise of this podcast. Pastors are real humans. They deal with the same stuff you deal with, even though you don't think they do. They put these shields on and these capes on, and we tell them it's just a stick. But
just a stick.
They make the most out of that stick.
Yep. Amen. Hey, man. Cool.
Okay, Red. Anyway, I hope everybody got something out of this. But anyway,
cool. Well,
thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for listening to us early in the morning. Man, we're just going to see where this goes on this video kick. So hopefully we'll be able to keep going. This is just kind of a trial thing. So if you're listening, go check out our YouTube and see if we actually got it loaded up, and if you're watching it, then look for more. And so you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. Man, we're everywhere. So follow us, like, share, subscribe. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace out, homies.
Peace.
I'm the bomb and about to blow up. I'm the bomb and I'm about to blow up.
Thank you for listening to the Riverside Weekly. Download the Riverside Waco app to stay connected and follow us on all social media sites at the Riverside Waco. This podcast is made possible by the givers of Riverside Community Church. Production and engineering provided by Capital G and DRS in Waco, Texas.